In 1870, New York City had a working subway carrying paying passengers beneath Broadway, but almost no one knew it existed. It ran for just 1 block, yet represented the most ambitious transportation experiment in American history. Within 3 years, it vanished completely, sealed behind a brick wall and forgotten for nearly half a century. The city built it in total secrecy to avoid political interference, constructing an entire underground station lit by chandeliers, while the street above had no idea what lay beneath. Now, using AI reconstruction and the few surviving photographs, we can finally walk through the ornate waiting room that disappeared before the modern subway was even imagined. Alfred Beach wanted to prove that pneumatic transit could work, but he knew the city government would never let him try. New York in the late 1860s was controlled by Boss Tweed and his political machine, which extracted bribes from anyone seeking construction permits. Beach had already designed pneumatic tube systems for moving mail, and he believed the same principle could move people underground in pressurized cars. But Tweed owned the street railway franchises and would crush any competitor who refused to pay. So Beach decided to build his subway in secret. He applied for a permit to construct a small pneumatic mail tube just 6 feet in diameter, running beneath Broadway between Warren and Murray Streets. The city approved it without interest. Then Beach and his workers began excavating a tunnel large enough to hold a passenger car 9 feet tall and 8 feet wide. They worked entirely at night, starting in early 1869, digging through clay and bedrock 20 feet below one of the busiest streets in America. Picture standing on Broadway in February 1869 at 2 a.m. Gas lamps flicker above shuttered storefronts. You hear nothing unusual, but 20 feet below your boots, dozens of men are swinging pickaxes through clay and rock, their oil lamps casting shadows on tunnel walls, advancing southward at 4 feet per night. Carts roll on muffled wheels. Foremen whisper instructions. By dawn, fresh cobblestones will be laid, and the street will look untouched. The excavated earth was loaded into carts and hauled through the darkness to the East River, where it was dumped without record or notice. Beach's crew advanced the tunnel 58 nights in a row without a single collapse, cave-in, or public discovery. Contemporary accounts in Scientific American later marveled that such a feat had occurred beneath Broadway without disrupting a single business above. The tunnel stretched 312 feet, a single straight passage running south from Warren Street toward Murray. At the northern end, Beach carved out a waiting room 120 feet long, accessible only through a basement entrance inside Devlin's clothing store. No street-level doorway announced its presence. No sign indicated what lay below. When Beach finally opened the station doors in February 1870, New Yorkers descended into something that should not have been possible. Step inside through the basement entrance at Devlin's clothing store. The staircase curves downward, and suddenly you are standing in a room that feels like a hotel lobby transplanted underground. Light pours from the chandelier above. The air smells of furniture polish and fountain water. A well-dressed attendant nods as passengers in top hats and long skirts sit on velvet chairs, waiting. Piano music echoes off tile. You are beneath Broadway, but nothing about this space admits it. Beach had furnished the waiting room entirely at his own expense, spending over $350,000 in total, approximately $7.5 million today. The walls were frescoed with murals. A grand piano stood in one corner, often played by a hired musician during operating hours. A marble fountain held goldfish that swam in circles under the glow of gas lamps and a crystal chandelier. Oil paintings hung on mirrored walls, and upholstered seating lined the room like a theater lobby. Contemporary visitors described it in Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper as the most luxurious public space in the city. A reception desk stood near the tunnel entrance, staffed by attendants in formal attire who collected the 25-cent fare. Beach installed a zircon spotlight, an experimental technology, making it one of the brightest enclosed spaces in New York, brighter than most theaters of the time. The Beach Pneumatic Transit Company prospectus boasted that passengers would wait in comfort equal to any first-class hotel. A subway station that existed for only 3 years received more decorative investment per square foot than Grand Central Terminal would receive 4 decades later. No subway station since has matched the opulence Beach created in that underground room. But the station was only the threshold. The tunnel itself contained the machine that made it all work. At the southern end of the tunnel, Beach installed a massive steam-driven fan, a Roots-type blower measuring over 15 feet in diameter. The fan generated 100 horsepower of wind pressure, strong enough to push a 22-passenger car through the tunnel at 10 miles per hour. The car itself had no engine. It was a wooden cylinder mounted on iron rails, upholstered inside with cushioned benches, sealed at both ends with doors. The car moved entirely by air pressure from behind, blown forward by the great fan like a message through a pneumatic mail tube. To reverse direction, the fan's enormous blades were mechanically shifted to pull air instead of push, creating suction that drew the car back to the station. Beach's patent filings and engineering schematics, published in Scientific American, show the precision of the system's design. The tunnel was airtight at both ends, allowing pressure to build until the car began to roll. Think about what you would have experienced inside that car. You sit on a cushioned bench. There is no rumble of engine, no jolt of acceleration. The attendant closes the door, then a sudden rush of air. You feel the pressure shift in your ears, and the car glides forward in near silence, pushed by invisible wind. Gas lamps blur past the windows. 22 seconds later, you are at the far end, 1 block south. The car slows, stops. The doors open to empty tunnel. Then the great fan reverses, and you are pulled backward home. The fan was so powerful that during early tests it blew open the entrance doors and scattered papers across the waiting room before engineers adjusted the pressure controls. Benson Bobrick's history, labyrinths of iron, notes that the system worked flawlessly for 3 years without a single mechanical failure. Over 400,000 people rode that car between 1870 and 1873, paying 25 cents each to travel 1 block underground. The ride lasted less than a minute round trip, but passengers returned repeatedly, fascinated by the smoothness and silence of pneumatic propulsion. Beach believed he had proven his concept and began seeking permits to extend the line northward to Central Park, a distance of over 5 miles. He published detailed plans showing stations every few blocks, each equipped with its own fan system. The New York legislature reviewed his proposal and in 1873 voted to approve his expansion. But Boss Tweed still controlled the governor. John T. Hoffman, a Tweed ally, vetoed the expansion permit on the grounds that Beach had not obtained proper municipal consent. No amount of public support or engineering success could overcome political corruption. Beach had not paid bribes, so his subway would not grow. The financial panic of 1873 destroyed Beach's personal funding and, without legislative approval, he could not attract investors. By the end of that year, Beach admitted defeat. He ordered the tunnel sealed with a brick wall, removed all mechanical equipment, and left the station to decay in darkness. The waiting room furniture was abandoned in place. The chandelier went dark. The fountain drained. Within months, the entrance through Devlin's clothing store was closed and forgotten. Beach never spoke publicly about the project again. The tunnel was rediscovered accidentally in 1912 by workers excavating the BMT Broadway line, who broke through the brick seal and found the waiting room still intact, furniture covered in dust. Newspaper coverage of the discovery expressed astonishment that such a place had existed and vanished within living memory. A technology that worked perfectly was destroyed not by engineering failure, but by political corruption, and was then immediately forgotten by the city it was built to serve. By 1912, when workers found it again, no one involved in its creation was still alive to see it unearthed. The exact location of Beach's Station lies beneath the current City Hall subway station complex, its waiting room obliterated during construction of the BMT line, leaving no physical trace above or below ground. We built subways that could carry millions, but we will never again build one with a chandelier and a fountain. The first subway in New York vanished because it was too beautiful and too honest to survive.